She received occasional visitors. Some were important people, but others simply wanted to exchange a few words with the foreign shrine maiden for the experience. Much like the white lady before her, this foreign shrine maiden seemed to attract people intrigued by the color of her skin. Maomao said, she said someone who visited her today wanted their fortune told. Prognostication is certainly something a shrine maiden sometimes does, but it is a bit of a rude request. She is after all a foreign dignitary, Liu said. Maomao agreed completely. Not to mention that publicly at least she was here for medical treatment. Going to someone in that position and asking them to tell your fortune seemed to lack empathy, but sadly many people seem to be that way. They say her fortunes are accurate, but I question living your life based on things like that, letting baseless predictions dictate your future, Maomao said. That was what bothered her. There was no reason to believe fortune-telling worked. If the shrine maiden's predictions had any validity at all, it probably just showed she had a gift for reading people. I know you prefer things to be clear-cut, Maomao, Liu said. You do not like fortune-telling, Yao broke in. Does it not make you feel funny? Maomao asked. She knew not everything in the world was black and white. However, in her view, most of life's mysteries simply represented a limitation of one's own knowledge or information. There was always something real behind them. She said, scorching tortoise shells and letting that tell you where to locate your capital city. A pretty dubious method. I dare say it is surprisingly rational. In fact, her father countered. Using parts of the local wildlife can give you a sense of how well the animals are eating. In other words, whether the land is abundant. Call it fortune-telling, attribute it to the gods or an immortal if that is what it takes to get people to believe it. Perhaps that is where what we call politics began. Maomao thought, I see. She could accept that. Yao was also listening intently. There is only one problem. A ritual might have meant something when it was first performed, but if you forget why it began or lose the knowledge of what it means, only the form remains. That girl's is dangerous. Liu looked sad. I once went to a village where they would sacrifice all the infants born in a year when there was a bad harvest. They buried them in the ground, but one year that failed to improve the crop, so they made more sacrifices. They continued until there was hardly anyone left in the village. That was when I happened to pass through the place on my travels. I think I see where this is going. Her father had known much hardship, and by this point in the story, Maomao had a good idea of what he was getting at. He said, when they tied me up and threw me in a hole, I thought for sure I was going to die. I am fortunate my travelling companion arrived a little late and found me. Otherwise, I might be feeding the worms to this very day. Yao was speechless at the composure with which Liu conveyed this grim tale. As perceptive as he was a bit numb to stories of his own misfortune. He hadn't chosen to become a eunuch. We might regard human sacrifice as absurd, but it was effective at one time in the past. In this particular village, they had a habit of planting the same crop in the fields each year. They used fertilizer, but one nutrient was missing. This nutrient is produced in the human body. That logic would only hold true if monocropping was the actual problem. When Maomao's father visited the village, an insect-borne disease caused the poor harvest. The sacrifices had been entirely in vain. Sometimes people continue to do things simply because they worked in the past. A place that encourages good harvests sometimes uses human sacrifices. The harvests improve because the sacrifices are buried in the bare earth. Over time, the gods or immortals become involved, and it transforms into a ritual. The divine offers a powerful and convenient excuse. Perhaps the shrine maiden of Shao became sacred through a similar process. Their conversation led them to the door of the medical office. Maomao would have liked to hear more from her father, but that was all for now. She helped him out of the carriage. There were reports to write, always reports. They discovered quite a commotion as they entered the office. What was going on? Thank goodness you're here, said a doctor who came over to them looking very distressed. What's the matter? Liu asked. What's the matter? What's the matter? I can't believe he would show up when you were both out. We told him you weren't here, but he insisted he would wait until you got back. We didn't know what to do. Maomao and her father looked at each other. There were only a few people who could cause this much worry. Liu said, I guess I had better handle this, and walked into the medical office. Inside, as expected, was the man with the monocle, reclining on a couch he had brought with him. The man said, "Uncle, I thought you would never get here," grinning widely. Liu Humin said, "Come now, Lacan. We have talked about bringing your furniture into people's offices without being invited. Throw your snack wrappers in the trash can, please, and do not complain if your teeth rot from drinking only juice. Are you drinking straight from the container?" Liu Humin bent over and began to pick up the wrappers. "He looks like an old grandma," said Yao. Even those in the office who were not particularly refined probably agreed with her. The apprentice physicians and the freak's subordinates quickly joined Liu Humin in his task. Maomao should probably have helped too, but if she got anywhere near them the commotion would just start again. Not to mention she simply didn't feel like it. Instead she observed from behind a post. "Uncle, where's Maomao? She's close, isn't she?" the freak said, his nose twitching like a dog's. Maomao couldn't stop herself from mumbling, "Maybe you could do something about your face, Maom." "It's terrifying," Yao said. If she said so, then it was true. Maomao massaged her mouth and eyebrows until they relaxed somewhat. She couldn't keep her cheeks from twitching though. "Maomao, give me Maomao," the freak was shouting. "Come on now. I warned you that if you made a fuss there would be lots of carrots in your dinner." "It is carrot congee tonight," Liu Humin said. If people did not think he seemed like an old lady already, they would now. Several people were holding their stomachs, overcome with mirth. The rest were looking around, not knowing what to do. "I want egg in my congee, uncle. Or no, where is Maomao? I have a legitimate reason to be here today. That is somewhat hard to believe, considering you are lying around on a couch you brought yourself and getting snack debris everywhere," Liu Humin said. He opened a drawer, took out a toothbrush, and gave it to the freak strategist. The message appeared to be "Brush your teeth. You can begin by telling me what your reason is. I know you lose all sense of proportion when it comes to Maomao. If I agree with why you are here, we can proceed from there." The strategist, shoving the toothbrush into his mouth, nodded eagerly. Maomao picked up a basket of used bandages in the hallway. She trusted her father to handle things. If she was lucky, they would finish their little chat while she was still doing the laundry. Perhaps an hour later, after she had finished the washing and begun to hang the bandages to dry, they called for her. Her father arrived looking tired. "What did he want?" asked Yao, not Maomao. "Something rather surprising, I must say," replied Liu Humin. "Yes, the prince's presentation will be soon, and Lacan wants Maomao to be his food taster at the dinner. Does he really plan to be there?" Maomao thought. Lahan claimed the strategist rarely bothered to attend garden parties or get-togethers. This included, she understood, the last imperial garden party where she had been a food taster. Why? Maomao asked. She knew there must be plenty of people with grudges against him. That explained the need for caution. To think that he would ask for her personally. It wasn't as if he objected when others asked Maomao to check their food for poison. If he had asked for her to be his lady-in-waiting, that would be different. But a food taster. That is a more difficult request to refuse. No one will object to him having a food taster, especially after the incident with the food poisoning. "How would you like to handle this?" Maomao said. "Is that really a question?" When her father said the request was hard to turn down, it was as good as telling her they could not say no. Her old man had always been a soft touch anyway. After what had just happened, people had started calling him Mom, but it did not matter to Maomao. It did not really matter. "May I ask something?" Yao said, raising her hand. Liu Humin nodded. "Weren't Maomao and I supposed to attend the shrine maiden at the banquet?" "Yes, that was the intention." Liu Humin continued. "She will have to get by with only one of you. Whether that would be Maomao or Yao had yet to be determined. The shrine maiden was to have 2 food tasters. One was from Shao and the other was from Li. Considering her status and all the attendants, guards and others around her, the one from Li was fortunate simply to be able to be anywhere near her. "All right. You go with him then, Maomao. It will be simplest if I take care of the shrine maiden." Yao was firm, but Maomao said, Hold on, don't I have a say in this?" She was frankly frightened of what Inen might do if she let Yao taste food for poison. She also wanted to do it. "He asked for you specifically, so I think you should accept." Just think of what would happen if you attended and the Shrine Maiden and Grand Commandant Kan were lurking around. Maomao had no response to that. Her father was also silent. The strategist's impulsive behavior was generally politely ignored by his colleagues. However, they did not want him acting that way around a foreign dignitary, especially one whom even castrated men were not allowed to approach. Maomao, Lumen said, patting her shoulder. You can leave the Shrine Maiden to me, Yao said, patting her other shoulder. Are you sure we cannot reconsider? Maomao asked, waving her hands as she looked at them. I'm afraid we simply cannot refuse this request, Maomao. Considering what this means for the Shrine Maiden, you must attend Lacan. We wouldn't want an international incident. Come on, Pops, you must still have a trick up your sleeve. Giving her another pat on the shoulder, Lumen said, I'm afraid not. Chapter 16, The Dinner. Time does not always flow at the same rate. Pleasant times are all too brief, but difficult stretches seem to drag on and on. The days before the banquet went by quickly, because time is swift when something unpleasant is coming. Maomao insisted that until the day of the event, she did not want to go to the strategist's place unless absolutely necessary. Yao was very excited to handle a job all by herself. She stayed at the Shrine Maiden's villa for several days before the banquet. The Shrine Maiden requested this, so Yao could become familiar with the food she ate every day. The woman wanted to be sure there would be no mistakes, even though her diet had been carefully enumerated and reviewed. Maomao had been keen to sample the foreign food. She blamed the freak strategist for making her miss this chance. Yao had never been a food taster before. Before she moved to the villa, Maomao showed her the ropes. Yao was an eager student and took plenty of notes. Maomao was confident she had gotten it all. On the day of the banquet, they had to report for work an hour earlier than usual. I do not want to do this. How many times had Maomao had that thought? She had lost count. She forced herself to change clothes, leaving her room at the last possible moment. Even then, she did not go out of her way to look enthused. Oh, Maomao, well, haven't seen you for a while. Who should she meet in the hallway but Nen? The other woman had not been sleeping in their dormitory since she was assigned as Jinchi's lady-in-waiting. She had a different place to stay. She was clearly fatigued, though. Her gaze was vacant and her lips were dry. She swayed slightly as she walked, looking like a ghost. Was she suffering from a lack of Yao? Maomao wondered. Maomao, where is the young mistress? Oh, Yao is not here. At the news, Nen looked as if a star had fallen from the sky and struck her directly on the head. She stumbled forward and leaned against the wall, gradually sliding down to the floor. She looked as if she was melting, or like a snail that had been sprinkled with salt. Are you all right? Said Maomao. She clearly wasn't, but it seemed polite to ask. Why, young mistress, was all Nen said. She really is smitten. Maomao poked Nen a couple of times, unsure what to do. She did not want to go to work, but being late for personal reasons would not look good. So she could not stay here forever. What are you up to? Do not you have to work? I'm assuming you are supposed to be with a certain someone all day today. Nen made a gurgling sound. This was the only chance I had to slip away. The Moon Prince has a chief lady-in-waiting with eyes in the back of her head. Ah, Maomao could sympathize. The Moon Prince was Jinchi, he had a name, but as the Emperor's younger brother, only other members of the imperial family were permitted to use it. Everyone else called him by a nickname. His chief lady-in-waiting was an aging woman named Sugan, and she was a strict woman. Even Nen couldn't escape her attention. Won't she be angry if you don't hurry back? Yes, I suppose you are right. It is okay. I just wanted to be able to smell her from up close. I wanted to put her hair up properly. I just do not want to do some guy's hair even if it is smooth and silken. So Jinchi is some guy, huh? This was further proof of Nen's devotion to her mistress. If Nen was trusted to do Jinchi's hair, then Suhyun must like her a lot. Maomao recalled that once she had gotten settled in Jinchi's service, she had been asked to do his hair on several occasions. She had always refused, saying she had never done such a thing before. Nen heaved herself to her feet. She was still swaying as she began to walk away. Then she turned back toward Maomao as if she had remembered something. She said, I never got to give you my answer to your letter because of you know who. Sending too many letters might make people think you were a spy. Being here like this was already quite suspicious. If anyone started asking questions, Maomao would have to testify on Inen's behalf. "Thank you for taking the trouble," Maomao said, accepting the letter from Inen. This was the reply to the letter asking about how to deal with the shrine maiden's condition. Inen had seemed likely to have a good idea how to treat women's illnesses. Maomao opened the letter and found her response was quite detailed. It mostly described treatments she was already familiar with, but also a few applications that surprised her. She was impressed. Then she noticed one line in the middle of the letter. "Hey, this here," she caught hold of Inen, who was once again stumbling her way back to work. "This part about Hazma, is this true?" After a second, Inen said, "Yes, it is. And you still let Yao eat it?" "Yes, Maomao knew it was supposed to make a woman bigger. I want Lady Yao to be beautiful," Inen said. For a second, a glow returned to her face, but she soon looked dead inside once more. Maomao headed off to her own assignment, now with fresh pangs of sympathy for Yao. Maomao did not know exactly what would happen before the dinner. There would be a ceremony, but it had many steps. To be perfectly honest, she did not know what they all were. The ceremony took place in a separate area where only those directly involved were allowed. Maomao and others in similar positions simply had to wait. She was annoyed to have reported for work an hour early if she was only going to stand around. She considered looking at the cabinets full of medicine, but then one of the doctors called for her. To her dismay, he needed someone to act as an intermediary. He said, "Take this over to the consorts." Banquets, garden parties, and similar events were some of the few opportunities the flowers of the rear palace had to go outside. It would be inappropriate to send a man as a messenger, and without Yao or Inen around, there was no one to go but Maomao. When she looked at what she had been given, she discovered sticks of incense. The medical office kept them on hand, because they did in fact have medicinal applications. The smoke helped keep bugs away, and the aroma had a calming effect on people. They wanted to keep the mosquitoes away. The normal stuff was too smoky, I guess, the doctor said. Normally, incense would be too luxurious to use simply to stop some insects. It was typical to burn tree branches that had insect-repellent qualities. Even ordinary smoke would help a little, but it would certainly be smoky. "I wonder which noble lady could have made such a demand," Maomao said. "Ah, it was the newest one. You know, the foreigner." That surprised Maomao somewhat. "We haven't made a proper report to her yet about the shrine maiden's secret." Did she truly have a baby girl? It seemed she might return home before anyone discovered the truth. Being from Sheol, it likely did not matter that she was new to the palace. She was still allowed to attend the banquet. "Very well," the doctor said. "Give some of the incense to all the consorts, and be certain to do it in the correct order." The doctor then gave Maomao a list of all the consorts who would be present, and showed her a map of where each consort would be located in their building. Empress Jyokayu was in attendance, as was High Consort Lihua. Ailin was one of 3 middle consorts present. It was scary company if you made a mistake about the proper order in which to distribute the incense. Maomao thought to herself as she went on her errand, "Sheol's power politics don't make much sense to me." Ailin is a political refugee. Isla is her political enemy. Yet Ailin wants to gain leverage over the Shrine Maiden. She wants to force the Shrine Maiden to help her. That was, at least, Maomao's best understanding of the situation. She was curious, but she knew sticking her nose in was a good way to lose her head. She could only stay quiet, listen carefully, and try to escape if things became too dangerous. Each of the consorts had been given a room to rest and prepare. However, Empress Jyokai was waiting in a different place. Maomao thought it would be proper to give the incense to Consort Lihua first. She expected Lihua would want to have a long conversation. Instead, Maomao waited outside Lihua's room for any ladies in waiting she knew to pass by. The less helpful of Lihua's ladies had already been dismissed, but those who remained still looked at Maomao with a clear fear in their eyes. She wished they would stop, so she distributed the incense to each lady one by one until she reached Ailin's room. There she took a sniff. That is odd. Even from outside she could already smell incense. She knocked on the door. "Please come in," said Ailin. Her voice was unmistakable. Maomao opened the door and discovered she was alone with no ladies or attendants. She was pressing something to her chest. As Maomao got closer, the smell became more noticeable. "I've brought your mosquito repellent," she said. My thanks, would you be so kind as to leave it there? My lady-in-waiting just stepped out. Perhaps she needed to use the toilet. The consort's lady was there as much to watch Eileen as to wait on her. She must have thought it was safe to leave Eileen alone for a moment. The room had a single small window and only one door. There was a guard outside. I'll be on my way then, Maomao said. She was about to leave when Eileen took her sleeve. Yes, said Maomao, you have been to see the honoured shrine maiden, haven't you? How does she look? Who boy, how am I supposed to answer that? Maomao thought. She decided to simply tell the truth. She shows no sign of fatigue from her journey. We are examining her illness as thoroughly as we can. You need not worry about that. It was such a banal answer that even Maomao could have chuckled. The consort might act solicitous, but Maomao knew perfectly well that she was trying to discover the shrine maiden's weakness. She is a fine actor. If Maomao hadn't known about Eileen's secret request, she might have been convinced that the woman was truly worried.